Council meeting to order. Allie, could you please take roll?
Councilmember Bruce Bassett. Councilmember Jane Brom. Here. Councilmember Mike Sarro. Councilmember Mike Grady.
Here.
Councilmember Dan Grouse.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Al Jenke.
Here.
Mayor Jim Pearman.
Here. And tonight's a special evening, and before we do that, I do want to bring something that happened over the weekend. We have the Youth and Family Services Award. It's the Flash Family Inspirational Award, and the Flash Family Inspirational Award honors a Mercer Island senior adult who exemplifies the spirit of good sportsmanship or community leadership and who possesses an optimistic attitude and friendly demeanor while acting as a role model to others. And on Sunday, I had the pleasure to give this to, which is, I believe, a Mercer Island institution, Fran Call. Fran came up through the school district and through many years had kids riding across the United States, and now she's putting her endeavors to keep seniors real healthy. And she's quite an inspirational person, and it's quite an honor to do it. And her plaque, this plaque, will be down at the community center. So it's quite an honor for me to do that for Fran. So with that, there is some things that we want to, just housekeeping. We're going to have a special presentation in just a moment. After that, the City Council will be retiring to executive session for 45 minutes. And that is persona to discuss litigation, RCW 42.30.110(1I) for 45 minutes. After the executive session, we will reconvene. Public comments or appearances will be at that time, and then the regular agenda will follow. So with that, it is my pleasure this evening to give testament to the finest emergency response system in the United States. I used to think that when I used to see it on TV, if you're going to have a heart attack, everyone said, do it in Seattle. Wrong, do it on Mercer Island or Bellevue. That's it. And, of course, the events, and I think they're really quite amazing. What happened to me on October 31st, and I'll tell you the timeline, which really is a testament to how well our system worked. May 31st. What did I say? May? Okay. Oh, October. I'm sorry. I don't know where I am. So anyway, with that, thank you. I'm a little out of practice. It's been a month. So anyway, first of all, I want to acknowledge some people that came to my aid, but also represent the different parts of our emergency response system. And before I do that, I thought that I would run down exactly what happened, and then I'll read the letter, and then I'd like each of the individual parties to come up, and we have letters, proclamations for you, and also we'd love if you have a moment to speak about your organization. We are on TV, so the citizens of Mercer Island, I'm sure, would love to hear this. My story very quickly. On May 31st, after rowing practice at Mount Baker over in Seattle, I was coming back on the freeway, and right at Rainier Avenue before I-90, it hit me, and I suffered the beginning of a heart attack. And from there, kept my wits pretty much through the floating bridge, came over First Hill, and I knew that my best chances of survival was to get to Station 91, the North End Mercer Island firefighter, the fire station. And I did that, and once I got there, the outside door was open, but the interior doors were locked at that time. There happened to be a phone on the wall. 911 was on there. I grabbed the phone. I called 911, which is our NORCOM dispatch fellows, and proceeded to collapse on the floor. And at NORCOM got my call and dispatched it. The heart attack started at 7:45. They dispatched at 7:49. At 7:50, the firefighters, and we'll call them out in a minute, from Mercer Island, came to my aid. And from there, NORCOM dispatched Medic 1 from Bellevue, and Medic 1 arrived at Mercer Island North Station at 8:12. From there, they triaged me and got me to Overlake Hospital. By 8:23, I was in the OR room. So from the start to the OR room was from 7:45 in the morning to 8:23. And the remarkable thing is that I had the bad one, as the guys would say. I had a complete blockage of my LAD, which is known as the widowmaker, and the survival rate on that's about 30%. And for those people who do survive, the longer it takes to get the stents in your heart and freed up, the more damage there is to your heart. So not only can you survive, but then the quality of life of what it looks like after that happens to you. After 2 weeks of recovery, I went in and I had my EKG, and due to the superior treatment I received and how quickly it happened, the EKG did not even register that I had a heart attack. And this morning, my wife, would you please cover your ears? This morning, I was the first day back rowing. I rowed 8,000 meters on Lake Washington today. My heartbeat was up to 140, 150, felt great, no shortness of breath, and I know I'm going to have a great second half of my life. I have a new birthday. It's May 31st, and I look forward to that. And before I start reading this, I do want to introduce some very special people that really are important to us, or me particularly, my family, my wife Catalin, and my 2 daughters, Charlotte, who's graduating this year, a senior, and little Julia, the brave one, and she just graduated from preschool. So that is really something. And anyway, we thank you very much. With that, I'd like to read you the letter and then have you come up. This is July 18th, 2011. The City of Mercer Island wishes to acknowledge and celebrate the medical emergency response system serving the community of Mercer Island. Through considerable technical skills, fast response, and caring approach to patients in immediate medical crisis, all of Mercer Island citizens rest assured and confident that when the needs arise, they will have the best emergency response system in America waiting their call. I will attest to this. It was unbelievable. So in order of response, what I'd like to have is, first of all, NORCOM, and we have the emergency, the people that actually took my call are here with us tonight. That is call taker Dan pronounce your name. I'm sorry, Dan. Thank you. And dispatcher Chris Anderson. And Chris Fletcher, the administrators. Fisher, rather. Yeah, please come on forward, would you, please? And I would do NORCOM first, and I want to give you a chance to have the mic for a minute and celebrate your fine work. And maybe, for a lot of people don't know, this is a relatively new partnership that's gone on, and I'm delighted. Right over here would be just fine. On this one, yeah.
Good evening. We appreciate very much the opportunity to have our folks recognized. It's something that they work very hard at every day. It's their job. As they said, we just did our job, as I'm sure you'll hear from the rest of the emergency response team. NORCOM is still relatively new. We went live with our operations in July of '09. And these folks are part of the new NORCOM team. They go through extensive training, especially as it relates to pre-arrival instructions and EMS. And they're trained to answer calls and dispatch police, fire, and EMS, and they do so hundreds and hundreds of times a day. And we're very, very proud of the quality of the people that we have at NORCOM. We're very proud of this new agency, and we're happy that we were at the right place at the right time to help you.
Great. Thanks so much. And guys, would you come forward? I've got certificates I'd like to give you and personally shake your hands. Thank you very much. Thanks so much. After we can have a little picture. But thank you very much. The next group is our firefighters. They were the second group on the scene. And before I introduce them, I wanted to share with you a very special present that the Chief Tubbs in the back of the room gave me. I'm a very superstitious guy, and he wrote a very nice note, and he gave me a St. Florian medallion. And I know that this means a lot to the firefighters, the superstition of when you go out and risk your lives, and this medal. Excuse me for a moment. When I was waiting for my heart results back, I held this. Thank you. So with that, I'd like to have Chief come down, Chief Tubbs, and we've got his crew that were a part of this. Acting Lieutenant Barry Collier, Firefighter Alec Monroe, Firefighter Al Erickson, and Firefighter Matt Kennedy. If you guys would want to come forward, please. And Chief, mic's yours.
For the record, Chris Tubbs, Fire Chief. Mayor, Pearman, Council, thank you very much for this honor. I'll keep it very short. This may sound altruistic, but it's very true. This is really what we live for. This is the value that we find in the work that we do. This kind of outcome is so rewarding, and we appreciate you taking the time to recognize the folks of the Mercer Island Fire Department, the Bellevue Fire Department, and NORCOM. All of them are wonderful team players, and they're great folks, so thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Chief. You guys, come on forward. If I can give you this, please. There we go. Thanks so much again. There we go. It's better just be standing up and seeing you guys, huh? There we go. Thanks again. You bet. Thanks again. The one thing I remember after I collapsed and you guys came in, it's really interesting. My daughter is my grammar cop, and she goes, "Jim, it's not good, it's well." Okay? And I remember you guys coming down, and I had my hat over my head, I think, and someone go, "Who are you?" And I said, "Jim." And they said, "Jim who?" "Jim the mayor." And I heard someone say, "Something, it's the mayor." I'm not quite sure what that word was, but I think I got a little smile. But with that, during this, and it was a very painful experience, as they will tell you, during the whole time I thought of my daughter Charlotte up there, and I said, I didn't break. And guys, back me up. I never said good, I said well, every time you asked. Is that right? There you go. Charlotte, you heard it. Okay, the next group is the City of Bellevue's Regional Medic 1 911 paramedics. We have Tim Adams and John Baxter, and we also have Chief Mike Eisner of the Bellevue Fire Department, and we're flattered that you came this evening. If you'd please come down, Chief.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and I don't want to repeat what others have said before, but clearly while we represented the medics that arrived on the call, as you have pointed out, it truly takes an entire team to have a successful resuscitation, so I'm really pleased that you chose to honor the call takers and the BLS folks and the ALS folks as well. It's our privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You had a great team, and guys, I said well, right? I didn't say good? Absolutely. Okay. Come on up. There we go. Thanks so much. Yeah, I have rosy cheeks this time, huh? There we go. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. The last group that finished up the whole experience, my little adventure, was Overlake Hospital and Medical Center. And unfortunately, the cardiologist, Jeff Fowler and Gretchen Crittenden, could not be here tonight because they're saving other lives right now. And so they were excused. But we have the CEO of Overlake Hospital to accept these on their behalf, would be Craig Hendrickson, who's the CEO, and please come forward. And I do want to tell you a little something about the hospital. As I told Craig coming in, I'd never been there except seeing people in the hospital, but personally I'd never been to Overlake and received services. And when I went across the bridge, it was stretch goals from the point when it hit me. And a lot of people will tell you that if I wasn't an endurance athlete and I didn't have a lot of things going on in my heart, I should have just passed out and died. And so I had stretch goals, and these guys will tell you I had the bad one, that what I did was I got through the tunnel. I said, okay, I survived that, and I'm white-knuckled. Now the next thing is let's get across the floating bridge, the flat part. Got there because I said if I pull over to the side, I was pretty sure I was going to die. No one would save me. It'd be too late. Got through that. Then I went, I had a better chance going under the lid or over First Hill. I like my chances with First Hill. Is Ed Holmes here, our police chief? Yeah. Okay, cover your ears. A few laws were broken. Okay, but I got to the fire station. Okay, chief? Okay. And anyway, when I got there and I collapsed, and the guys, our guys responded to me, and they say, where do you bring me? And I knew that my best chances were at Overlake. I said Overlake. So, Craig, it's all yours.
Wow, I'm not sure what to say. You might imagine we receive several expressions of gratitude from patients and families, but never in a situation like this. So this is very special, and to be here with you and to be here with the team of people that we work with on a regular basis of the medics out in the field, this is very special. So on behalf of Dr. Critton and Dr. Fowler, both outstanding physicians, but also on behalf of the 1,000 outstanding physicians on our medical staff and over 2,500 nurses and technicians at Overlake Medical Center. I just want to express my sincere thanks for you inviting us here today. We're very proud to be first responders for this community and to help those who need swift and skilled medical attention and many times life-saving care. We are trained and standing ready for this community and for those that are put in situations where there's a crisis situation, whether it's a local crisis or a broader regional crisis, or in your case, Mr. Mayor, a crisis of an individual person. We are so honored to work with a dedicated staff and physicians, and I know that they're very proud of the work that they do that save lives and change lives every day. My wonderful wife is here with me, and she's heard me say this so many times, but I tell people that there is a miracle that happens at Overlake every day. And you are now a living proof of that. You're obviously feeling better and taking care of yourself, even though I understand you didn't get your wife's permission to go out rowing.
No.
But you're recovering well, and you're back on the job. That makes me very happy. But it makes all of us at Overlake Medical Center very happy to get you back to your life, back to your family, back to your friends, back to your work, and back to the things that you love the most. So you are truly an inspiration to us. I will gladly share this commendation with the people back at Overlake Medical Center, because it is stories like yours that we share through the Medical Center with our family that fuel our determination and touch our hearts, not the same way that we touched your heart, but that touch our hearts and continue to inspire us to provide medical excellence every day. So we thank you very much, and we wish you and everyone here very good health.
Well, thank you very much. And at the end of the story is I have 2 new stints in my heart, and being a good Irishman, I've got one hell of a story. So anyway, what a conclusion. But thank you so much, Craig. Okay, with that, we're going to adjourn now for a few minutes, and then we'll be going into exec session after that. And please stick around for a moment. Love to say thanks one more time. And for all those who are listening, I hope they realize that the one thing I've learned from this thing, and I've talked to a lot of people, is, so guys, ask me, so Jim, what are the symptoms? What's this? What's that? If you have chest problems or your chest is going, don't take an aspirin and lay down on the couch. Respond to it. Because I found out that's how a lot of people don't make it. And the other thing is, and a lot of people have said to me, Jim, why did you drive to the fire station? And I said, why would I drive anywhere else? And so I would say, everyone on the island, if you're listening, if you got an emergency, the fire station's probably your best bet, and I think that was, in my case, very much that way. And guys in Bellevue, it's amazing times, and thank you, Chief, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it. With that, we adjourn. Thanks again. reconvene the council meeting. At this time, we will go into public appearances. If anyone would like to come and address the city council, please come forward, give your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joel Wonks. My address is 7635 Southeast 29th Street. I'm the president of the Mercer Island Farmers Market, and I'm here tonight to express the Farmers Market support for the council providing direction to Youth and Family Services and Parks and Recreation regarding the redevelopment of the Northwest Mercerdale property, also known more colloquially as the Recycling Center. We really appreciate what the city has done during the past couple of years with allowing the farmers market to use the property for storage, installing the sink so we can comply with health code, and the bathrooms obviously play a very crucial role for our patrons' comfort. We appreciate the fact that the city and Youth and Family Services and Parks has been inclusive of the farmers market in future planning, and in the plans going forward that the farmers market is seen as being one of the important constituents for any future redevelopment. So I've spoken with some of the council members, and I've also had the opportunity to speak with Cindy Goodwin, who's also spoken with our market manager. So I just wanted to speak in support of those plans, as well as to thank all of you for your support of the farmers market's continued use of the property. Thank you.
Great. Joel, thanks a lot for all your efforts. You're down there every week taking pictures and getting energy, and well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council?
Marty Gale, 9404 Southeast 54th Street. Tonight, I speak to the termination of the city manager, Part 2. I spoke to you previously on June 20th on the same topic. In Part 1, I gave a short history of the events leading to the Lindell lawsuit filing, how the cover-up of bad behavior by the city manager was followed by a disastrous decision by that same city manager to fire Ms. Lindell, deputy city manager. We are all learning the costs of that decision. On October 16, 2003, Mayor Alan Merkel sent to City Manager Rich Conrad a memorandum. You've probably all seen this. Rich Conrad had been accused of sexual harassment against City Clerk Tina Eggers. An investigation was done, concluding with what we all know as the Stepson Report. There was actually a long version of the report until Mr. Conrad caused the report to be shortened by more than half, having manipulated the results of the investigation for the final report. You'll find the long version as an attachment from the Ira Appleman email that was sent to you on July 8th. The City Council found Mr. Conrad had created a real mess. They had agreed to monetary settlement to Ms. Eggers. They had to arrange for the Mercer Island Reporter to give the public a manipulated version of what had happened, and they had to arrange token punishment to Mr. Conrad by using work time and monetary restraints, along with assigning some staff members to watchdog Mr. Conrad's behavior. A 3-page memorandum was written by the City Council at that time with Alan Merkel as mayor. In the memorandum was the following final paragraph, quote, "Accordingly you, that is Mr. Conrad, are urged to take this matter seriously and take all necessary steps to prevent further occurrences. Any further conduct of a similar nature could result in termination of your employment," unquote. That's what Rich Conrad agreed to. Of course, Mayor Merkel could not say that the city manager would be fired if an occurrence happened in the future, because he can't control the actions of future councils. In the memorandum, Mr. Conrad is expected not only to adhere to all city policies, but that he would be an exemplary model of professionalism for his staff. He has failed to do that. In fact, he made sure that those employees who could make him adhere to all the city policies were eliminated from the staff. Could it be any clearer? Rich Conrad has broken the contract intent of that memo. If he hasn't, why would the city be on the hook for the thousands of dollars for the public records violation they were found guilty of? And why would the WCIA have to pay Ms. Lindell $1 million, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of dollars they've already paid the defendant's attorneys? That's a lot of money for mistakes that shouldn't have happened. Look for the WCIA insurance cost to our city to go up. Also, Ms. Conrad, without being terminated, could offend again with the pattern he has shown and his willingness to break a previous agreement. Chances are he will. So that puts the burden on you, our present council, To fulfill the contract that was made between Rich Conrad and the citizens through that memorandum in 2003, it is up to you to invoke the consequences. This city manager must be terminated, and it's your responsibility and your duty to do so. I'm asking again that the city manager be terminated, and of course, without a golden parachute. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the City Council?
Good evening. My name is Lynn Elfendahl. I live at 6160 94th Avenue Southeast. This is 3 minutes. I have to put a lot in here. I am here to speak to all the stuff I read in the newspaper. This latest one, Mercer Island fine in firing case. All I know about it is what I read in the newspaper, the Seattle Times, the Mercer Island Reporter, and on the Internet, concerning the behavior of the city manager, Rich Conrad. I can't for the life of me figure out why you have not been fired. If such a behavior had ever been exhibited at any company that I ever worked for, you would have been gone. This whole behavior, you, Mr. Conrad, are paid $167,000 a year salary as a city manager for Mercer Island. You then receive, in addition to that, benefits that push your yearly income to close to $200,000 a year. Now, you have been sanctioned by the court for your behavior of sexual harassment and hiding the facts, denying the woman defense of herself.
That's not true.
And here now, you
Tell the truth.
here now is my turn to speak, sir. Here now, the Mercer Island is being fined now and going to have to pay these fines that you have accumulated when your action was illegal. We had a discussion last week, a group of friends and myself, and your behavior was the topic of the discussion. There are people here on this island that simply do not feel that we want to pay for what you have done, what your behavior is not only the $90,000 that you've been fined by the court, which is announced here in the paper, but it's also the additional expenses that you have created that could be forthcoming as a result of this. And we came to the conclusion that what we think would be in the best interest for everyone is if we were to file a class action lawsuit against the city of Mercer Island because of this. If we have to be paying, if the city of Mercer Island citizens have to pay this bill, if it's going to be forced onto us and added to our water bill or some other tricky sleight of hand that may go on, if we have to wind up paying for this, we're going to file a class action lawsuit, and it was even suggested that perhaps Lonnie Lindell or Bob Strubank could get one of them to represent us.
Comments, please.
Pardon me?
I need you to wrap up your comments. Your time's expired.
Yes, Mayor. I wish to speak to you, too.
No, the time is wrapped up now. You're going to. If there's other comments that you'd like, you can leave them off with our city clerk.
Yes,
your time is
I
expired
have
right
something
now.
else I do want to say.
Well, your time is expired.
I do have
Would you
one
please
other
take your
thing.
seat?
I do have
Ma'am,
one
would
other
you
thing.
please take your
I
seat?
do have one other thing I wish to add, Mr.
Ellen,
Mayor.
you cut the mic, please. Thank you. Take your seat, please. Your time's expired. If you have comments and you'd like to give them to the city clerk, please do.
Is this my First Amendment?
You have 3 minutes, and we gave you your 3 minutes.
Amendment has expired.
Please take your seat, ma'am.
This is Mercer Island.
Okay. I'd like to please address the city council.
Yes, I would. Ira Appleman, 6213 83rd Place Southeast, and parenthetically, let me say that that's the first time I'm in my 15th year of coming to all these meetings. I've been here before any of you except the city manager, and no one's ever been cut off by that. My mother passed away earlier this year. In her last years, we called 911 when she needed to go to the emergency room. The fire department arrived quickly and arranged an ambulance to get her to the hospital, so I have evidence that the firefighters that were in this were here earlier do a great job. But I'm here to talk about the Lindell lawsuit, the multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and how to prevent it in the future. Lonnie Lindell was fired in 2008 for standing up to city manager Richard Conrad. She filed a $1 million claim with the city for sexual harassment and retaliation, which led to the federal lawsuit. Now the city has agreed to pay the $1 million claim, plus an additional $90,560 plus attorney's fees the federal judge imposed upon the city for violating the Public Records Act. The city of Mercer Island has become particularly nasty under Mayor Pearman's administration. Mayor Pearman said of Londi under oath, quote, "I'm personally painting her as a liar," unquote, which you can see in his under oath video deposition at www.sexandmi.com. The city asserted that while working for the city, Londi engaged in, quote, "dishonest and deceitful conduct, unquote, and that her claims were, quote, "without merit," unquote. They even used the sleazy tactic, directed at women who stand up for their rights, of trying to embarrass Londi by introducing allegations about her sex life in court documents. I am particularly concerned about the police department and how it's been politicized under this city manager and Mayor Pearman. Last February, Police Commander Leslie Burns and second in command in the department wrote a letter to the newspaper claiming that allegations of sexual harassment at the city of Mercer Island are, quote, "completely untrue and without merit," unquote. She goes on to write that, quote, "I've never heard one complaint of sexual harassment from any female employee in the 15 years I've worked for the city," unquote. Now, can that possibly be true that she doesn't know about that? We know that Tina Eggers, former city clerk, and the former deputy city manager, Lonnie Lindell, filed formal complaints, which certainly the police department must have known about. More recently, Police Chief Holmes led an effort to place positive statements allegedly written freely by city employees in the Distorter, despite heavy criticism of the city manager and the announcement that the city was prepared to compensate Lindell for her sexual harassment lawsuit. The police department should be standing against illegal activity such as sexual harassment and not minimizing or excusing it. In conclusion, the city has not done anything to protect itself against these sexual harassment lawsuits. The council's done nothing. The mayor denies it, and I think that the council should do its job.
Would you please
the council
wrap up
should
your
do its
comments?
job and prevent these sexual harassment cases.
City Manager Conrad, I believe you want to address something?
I don't usually do this, but I feel I have to. Council, what you've just heard is a series of statements that are factually absolutely untrue and defamatory. There is nothing in any of this case, including the original claim and lawsuit by Ms. Lindell that accused me of sexual harassment with any employee at the city of Mercer Island. It's just simply not true. To insinuate or state that they have is defamatory, and you should be more careful with the words you use because that's not legal.
Would anyone else like to address the City Council? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public appearances. We'll move on to the consent minutes. We have a couple of minutes to go through. Do you want to do them individually, or we have?
Please do them individually.
Okay, individually. Do we have a motion for the mini planning session of June 18th?
Yeah, I'll move approval of those minutes, June 18th.
Okay, any changes, additions? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got a question.
Yep.
It's on page 3, and it's under the temporary encampment ordinance, and it deals with the last paragraph. It says, city encampment applications process and one of them, blah, 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 are hosted. Given no clear consensus from the council, staff was directed to continue to consider possible modifications, but to not draft any new language at this time. I guess, I'll look to Katie and others. Are you, in fact,
considering other modifications to the temporary encampment ordinance?
I think that what I recall from the planning session is that the consensus was, let's go see what happens when the next tent city comes to Mercer Island, see how that works, and then at that point in time we can consider if there's additional modifications to be made, including the ones that were suggested, to see how those work, the ones that were suggested at the planning session. So it was just to keep in mind, watch, see how things happen, and then if we needed to, make some modifications.
So the warrant check provisions are going to continue to be in that
Yes.
ordinance, and there are no actions on your staff's part to modify those?
What I recall from the planning session was that the consensus was that the most council members wanted to give it one more run through with a tent city to come here, see how that worked, and at that point in time it could be reconsidered to see if that was one of the pieces.
Okay. Any other changes? Anything? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, we have the next one, regular meeting minutes of June 20th. Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the June 20 regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, on to the regular meeting minutes of July 5th. Do we have a motion?
I move approval of July 5th
Minutes?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I just can't believe you had a meeting that took 2 minutes.
It was one of the most...
You know, Mike, you know why it only took 2 minutes? Because you weren't there. Why can I go to those? Because you weren't there. I have to go to the ones that end at 1 in the morning.
We were very proud of that. Yes, we did. That took a minute. Okay, with that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, let's go on to the consent calendar. Do we have the payables and payroll? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
A second? Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, on to regular business. We have...
Question, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
That's all right.
Please.
Rich, there was a $4,400 line item for Herrera on low-impact development and something, and FA. Wasn't quite sure what that was.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay.
We do have an LID project in the CIP in planning, so this is probably
Maybe that's it. Okay. Yeah, let me know. Thank you.
Okay, so we have, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of the consent, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, let's go on to regular business. Agenda Bill 4655, single-family residence impervious surface. And I believe, Tim, is that, oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Travis.
All right. Travis. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. So, good evening, council members. For the record, I'm Travis Saunders. I'm one of your city planners. So at the City Council's annual planning session, Council asked staff to bring forward an amendment to existing code regulating sites that are legally non-conforming with regard to impervious surfaces. The amendment is to allow for a trade of impervious surface coverage when the total amount of impervious surface is decreased. This amendment was approved as part of the Planning Commission 2011 work plan, and to that end, staff has worked to bring this item forward through the Commission to the Council. The process to date, we've went through the required notification process. We issued the State Environmental Policy Act determination of non-significance on May 16th. Noticed the open record hearing for the Planning Commission. No public comment was received during that hearing. So at the beginning of, or at the end of page 1 on Agenda Bill, you will find a strike and delete edit of the existing code section 1901.050 subsection F as recommended by the Planning Commission. As you can see, the existing code does not permit any expansion of impervious surfaces beyond the building footprint for legally non-conforming sites. It does not allow for structure expansion over existing impervious surfaces such as decks, patios, porches, walkways, and driveways. and it does not allow for a trade of impervious surface area. The Planning Commission's recommended code does allow for a new impervious surface beyond the existing building footprint when each square foot of new impervious surface is offset by a reduction of 2 square feet of existing impervious surface. And it also allows for expansion over legally existing impervious surfaces. Previous code only gives one option for those properties that are legally non-conforming to impervious surface, and that is to build up in the existing building footprint. So on your desk in front of you, you have this illustration, and it basically shows the effect of what this code amendment would allow for. In this example, we have a property here that is on a 15,000 square foot lot. We'll say that it has an allowance of 35% coverage. The existing site, as shown, is at 41.47%, so it would be considered legal non-conforming. With the Planning Commission's recommendation of a 2-to-1 change-out, this party would be removing an existing sports court at the tune of 1,400 square feet in favor of an addition to the house beyond the existing building footprint at 700 square feet. At the end of the day, this lot would still be considered non-conforming at 36.8%, but it would have been reduced from its previous allowance. So staff is seeking any revision to the Planning Commission's recommendation, so we can bring this back to you on the August 1st meeting for a second reading and adoption of the ordinance. With that, I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Council, questions? Dan?
I assume the intent of this language is to, with the reduction of 2 feet for every 1 foot of added, that at such point as you reach the maximum allowed amount, or maximum allowed amount, then there's no further reduction required, right?
That's correct, and you'll see on the language in that ordinance.
Yeah, that's my. I just think you need to work on the grammar. If you dissect this thing, it says no new impervious surface is permitted until the site is in conformance with the current requirements for the maximum allowed impervious surface limit. By putting the "or" where you've put it there, it doesn't work grammatically. So I could write it for you, but I'm sure you've got enough lawyers on your staff that you could write this thing and so it actually works grammatically.
I think staff understood. Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly work on a revision and bring that back to you August 1st. Absolutely.
Mike?
I had a similar issue, so I'm assuming that what you mean at the end there is that it's going to be at or under 35% for the site.
Correct. Yeah, we wouldn't, once you hit 35%, we wouldn't say, okay, you got to bring it down to 34 because that was your trade-off.
Yeah, I think you need to be explicit about that. Also, does it apply to overwater structures?
So for docks, are you talking?
Any overwater structures. So if I got a site and I'm adding new impervious.
How can anything over the water be impervious?
Very easily.
Oh, you mean a dock?
Yeah. So this would be for landward structures.
Well, no, it doesn't state that in this section. So this would be another recommendation that you're very specific that it doesn't apply to any overwater structures. Is that correct?
Well, it depends. What is the 19.01050? What is that part of? Is that part of the? Does that apply to overwater stuff?
George.
So if I could get to, for the record, George Dyer, Principal Planner, get to Councilmember Grady's question. That's a great point that you mentioned. Actually, overwater structures, it's excluded from the lot area. So any impervious surface isn't included in the lot area there. So it doesn't matter if that deck is pervious or impervious for that percentage of impervious surface allowance.
Okay. So, do you feel we need to be explicit about that? Because reading through this, I think one could be led to believe that you could add onto your dock, for instance, and then offset it with reducing part of your sidewalk.
So I believe with the upcoming SMP, there's talks about nonconformities specifically for the Shoreline Master Program. So this would be specifically for nonconformities for upland areas.
Okay.
So I think it would be distinct and separate via that.
I'd recommend that we add some language in there, just so.
For clarification.
Yeah, just for
Certainly.
clarification. You bet. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, for full disclosure, I'm always beating my head against this impervious thing.
That's because your head's impervious.
At my single-family residence. At my single-family residence.
I think your head's impervious, Mike. So.
Right. Yeah, I can't really say I'm fond of this one. From a personal, just full disclosure. Okay, so why a reduction in 2 square feet for the addition of the impervious surface? Is that not too onerous, or why do we do that? Why did you decide on 2 square feet instead of 1 1/4?
So this is
for
something
instance?
that the Planning Commission worked with when language was originally brought before them. It was presented at a 3-to-1 ratio. They had discussions and said, well, how much do we want to have as a trade-off? And it did land on the 2-to-1. The goal here is, and I think from the direction of the council, was that at the end there would be a net decrease of the overall site. So it's essentially up to the council to decide what that trade-off would be, but the result being a net decrease.
And what's the purpose? Why do we have this regulation?
To limit impervious surface?
Right.
For stormwater runoff is the primary one, which can result in erosion, downland, water quality issues, for basically pollution-generating surfaces and such. So has many good results from limiting impervious surface and control of stormwater management.
Travis, is this likely to be pertinent on remodels versus new construction?
So this would be...
When you remove driveway or...
Exactly. So this is for the property owner that has an existing house that want to do a remodel or a small addition, and they're capped out on their allowance. So they could build an additional bedroom, for example. The problem with the existing code is it doesn't allow for that expansion beyond the existing building footprint. So even though they have a sports court in the example we showed, that they can't build beyond the footprint and remove the existing sports court. So it leaves them with limited options. In this example, it's almost a win-win situation. They get some more use of their property, but get a trade-off from their existing impervious.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And would someone like to make a motion, or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to set ordinance number 11C-08 for a second reading and adoption August 1, 2011, with the wording changes, as discussed by myself and Councilmember Grady.
Okay. Okay, and just so we know, do you want to restate what you heard the council say?
Okay, so we're going to look at grammar of the or statement at the end. So we'll come back with something crafted to address that. Also, Councilmember Grady requested that we be specific as to where this applies and not for waterward areas.
Okay.
That summarizes adequately.
Okay, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so with that, we have it moved, and do we have a second?
Mike.
You second? Okay. All right. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on now, and we've got a really good story here. And
What's your life story?
we like good stories.
city engineer and project manager for the sewer lake line and pump station number 4 replacement project. And I have to admit that 8-9 years ago, when I started on this project, I never really thought I would be here to close out the project in as successful a manner as we are. As you know, the project was a 2-year construction activity, and I have a really quick slideshow to capture 2 years of construction in 2 or 3 minutes. So the first little bit we'll go through is what the Schedule A, sewer lake line replacement portion of the project looked like. Manson Construction was the prime contractor. They had 2 subs working for them, Frank Coluccio Construction and Global Diving. And there they are, out on just north of I-90, getting their barge all ready to go for a 2-year construction project. This shows tight quarters under I-90, where we had to go under I-90 to put in the main line, and we also made the connection of that main line to the pump station, which is on the site that is right under I-90. Here again, their barge getting ready to do the trenching for the sewer main. You can see they have a pretty nifty operation out there in Lake Washington. Here we are hoisting main line so that it can be lowered and sunk into Lake Washington. Another picture of this pipe happens to be for a side sewer lateral. And they're floating that piece of ductile iron pipe into position between docks, which is a huge obstacle for us. The divers there are getting ready for placement of that pipe into the trench. Here we have a picture of our swamp buggy, which allowed us to get as close to the shoreline as we could and be able to trench for side sewer connections. Otherwise, we would have had to have small skiffs, much smaller boats in between the docks, and probably doing a lot of hand digging to try to get those trenches in place. And then this is a final photo for the Schedule A piece of the contractor with the sandbags along the shoreline, getting ready to make a side sewer connection. So then we have Schedule B, which is the pump station number 4 portion of the project, and Stellar J Corporation out of Woodland, Washington, Vancouver, Washington, was our prime. They had 21 subs working for them, and I've noted five of them that had large parts to play in the project. That was Dalton Electric, Kepler Construction, Portland Mechanical, Specialized Landscape, and then Technical Systems, Inc., or they also go by the acronym of TSI. So part of the project was construction of a control building, which houses all of the electronics for the operation of the pump station. And so here they are starting out on that construction. One more picture of them getting that into place, and there is the final product. And that's under the I-90 high-rise. That I don't know. It's the components inside that I didn't show the pictures of. That is the expensive part. So here we have the pump station site. So when we talk about the pump station, that's really the 50-foot deep shaft that we had to construct where the pumps are installed. So you notice along the shoreline we have the old school shoreline restoration. I'm just pointing that out because I'm going to show a very pretty picture of what it looks like at the end of construction. There is the contractor installing the sheet piles so that they can form the frame or the outside portion of the shaft before they start their excavation. Here's another photo sort of tying the two contractors together at the same time during a lovely summer day. And then we have a shot looking into the shaft. I'm not sure how deep that photo is. I have another one though that's not quite as deep. It shows one of the floor levels inside that shaft.
So now we have a photo. They have all the sheet pile installed. They're starting their excavation. In this photo, they may even have the excavation complete and have started working in that shaft. But you'll notice, again, along the shoreline, all that green is gone. The shoreline bank has been pulled back from the lake. We have some large, very large woody debris and some rocks along the shoreline. And that's what our shoreline looks like today. We have beach access. We have a beach, number one. We have access to the beach, and we have a lot of native plants, woody debris, more natural shoreline for this particular park site. And then that's what it looks like in its final completion stages. Pretty nice. No, that's the top of the pump station. It does we're hoping it makes a really nice seating area for Seafair, the Blue Angels, and any of that activity. So the site hasn't been open for the last 2 summers during Seafair, so we're not quite sure how the community's going to react.
Let it not be lost on the council that if we had followed the 25% rule in the Shoreline Management Act proposal, it would not look anything like that.
You said that. That's great. I was going to make that point. And you'll note that you've got soft gravel in there. Not all the armoring along the shoreline that you had before.
Exactly. Exactly.
Smaller
We've got
gravel.
some lots of.
Fish are going to like that.
We put spawning gravel down. We have a lot of willows. So when they grow, we'll have some good habitat, shade, and sources of a food source for the habitat that's out there.
That's right.
It's pretty
Just
cool.
a point for the record, I did not do that formal consultation. But those are measures that are mitigation, I might add, for the project.
They are. So, sort of getting to the place of wrapping up, this table is in your agenda bill. Project cost summary. Very quickly highlight our approved project budget way back when was $24 million, and I'm sort of rounding up here. Our actual expenditures for the project were $22 million, so we have a total project cost savings of $2 million to return to the city. And then couldn't have happened without a really incredible, fabulous, I'm not sure how many other adjectives I can throw at this, project team that came together to not only support the project, but to work really hard on the project. And again, this table is in your agenda bill, but I wanted to make sure that the audience at home and the audience here tonight knows who all of those people, all of those important people are that played a role in this project. We have all the professional services, we have the construction team, we have a ton of city staff, the public agencies that helped through the permitting and regulatory compliance piece of it, and then the city council, city manager, and all of the department directors. So that's it.
I would add to that list, to the end of that list, because it's conspicuously absent, our project manager.
Thank you.
And did a fabulous job.
Excuse me, and a couple of questions for you. How many awards have you won so far on this? What are they?
Only 3.
Only 3.
But that's okay. I will forget, so I'm going to look at my agenda bill. We were recognized by the Washington State chapter of the American Public Works Association, which is APWA, as the 2011 Project of the Year in the environmental category, $5 million to $25 million project. We've been recognized by the Pacific Northwest chapter of the Construction Management Association of Washington, and their acronym is CMAA. We received the 2011 Project Achievement Award from that organization. And then we have been recognized by the Washington State chapter of the American Council of Engineering Companies, the ACEC. Again, 2011, we won a silver award for exceeding client owner needs. So it's been a very successful project.
And one other question for you. When we started this, initially, we put this out to bid, and we got 2 bids in.
Correct.
Do you remember what those bids came in at?
Oh, offhand, I don't. I've tried to forget that.
I seem to
Very
recall
hard.
27 million plus or something like that. I mean, I
think it was pushing more the 29, 30 million.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
30 million. And I think it's important for people to understand, the city council, and I think you and Dan, a few others, came up with the idea, let's break it into pieces. Let's see if we can't get this to rebid. Staff was, of course, doing the staff work, and I think it's important for people to understand that the council was faced with a $30 million bill, and we've come in at a $22 million cost.
Yes.
And I just want to compliment my council because that was very proactive on the council's part, and that was a huge saving to our city. So I think, Dan, I'm not sure if you led that one or Al or who it was, but I just want to compliment you on a job very well done.
Well, I would like to say that I look at this as a huge win for the city because of where we were, whether it's $29 or $30 million, and to bring it in $2 million under the $24 million budget. I mean, we have basically, I don't want to say we found $2 million, but we've got a $2 million savings on the biggest construction project I think the city's ever undertaken. So that's a remarkable job for you and your staff, the entire city staff involved with this.
It's a credit. It really, truly is a credit to everyone who's touched this project.
Mike?
Yeah, just one quick, actually a couple quick items. The parking lot that they were using, what was the disposition of that? The parking lot?
Yes. The disposition of that, meaning the condition of it when they left, or what do you mean?
Right.
The condition of
it, are they selling it, or are we building a house?
That parking lot, the parking lot underneath I-90 that the pump station crew is using belongs to the Department of Transportation. It's part of that
No, I'm
parcel.
talking about where they were parking, where the construction crews were parking.
Oh, that parking lot. That parking lot was a private agreement between Manson Construction and the homeowner. And as far as I know, Manson has fulfilled their obligation or their contract with the homeowner, and it has been left the way the property owner would like it to be left.
We might just want to swing by there and confirm that.
Since Manson's been gone since December.
Okay, well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
No news is good news. You know, one of the benchmarks that I had, and you could have tell them by the questioning that I did, was are we taking care of the citizens on those lake line connections, or are we connecting with them well enough, and are there any I didn't have one complaint from a citizen that was affected by the laterals going into there. So really great job on that. And I would like to also point out that you came under budget, and that wasn't because you had a fat contingency. You had only a 10% contingency with a project with many, many unknowns, I'm sure. And you could have probably made the argument for a 15% contingency. So that's a great kudo, and you're managing that project.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to move to accept the completed sewer lake line and pump station number 4 replacement project and authorize staff to close out the contracts.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a final kudo, and I remember Ann and Rich and I were back in D.C. Trying to find money.
Dialing for
8-9 years ago. And
spitting snow and...
That's right. So it all panned out. Thank you.
And, I mean, I just would be remiss if I didn't concur what everyone else has said. It's really a fantastic job. So great,
Thank you.
Great work. I was curious, do you have any update on the First Hill pump station? Now that you've got one pump station under your belt, how's the other one going along?
Ann is now the pump station queen.
I am, thank you. That particular project, I believe, is moving along really well. They've just started. They're still waiting for some of the internal equipment to show up on the site, but once it gets here, they'll be ready to move forward fairly quickly. They have set up a bypass system, a water service bypass system, so their water service will not be inhibited in any way to First Hill while we're under construction, and they have all the electrical, the feeds to the PSE power pole are all set to go, so it's going well.
And no cost issues?
No cost issues that we know of to date. So yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed that once they actually start putting the pieces in the vault, that will all go very well.
Good.
Okay, any more comments? No? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Thanks so much, Ann. Congratulations again. Okay, moving on now, we're Agenda Bill 4658, the Harbor Code. Shane, evidently there's no presentation.
I didn't plan a presentation, but I
You're
can give
there
you a broad
for questions.
overview just to set the stage if you'd like, or I can just be here for questions.
What would you like, Council?
I have a couple questions, please, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so probably questions then, if you don't mind. Yeah, it's administrative, it's housekeeping. Mike, please.
You're looking for the toilets, the compost toilet?
Shane, I want to ensure that we're not rewriting these, and why we just don't reference RCW 88 or RCW, I think it's 70, and be done with it like that.
And that is what we're doing. I'm not sure.
Why are you going through each individual definition? Why don't you just reference RCW 79A and RCW 88 and be done with it?
There's several things there's several things within Chapter 8802 and 79A that are purely administrative in matter that apply to the state. Well, I'm not sure if it's Department of Licensing. I think it's Department of Licensing that deals with the boat registration issues that just wouldn't apply to us. So we're adopting the things that apply to the city. One option would be is to look into adopting all infractions contained within 8802 and coming up with some different language. We've never done that in the past. What you see in the ordinance is the existing language is not redlined, essentially. That's how we've adopted things in the past. We've adopted by incorporating by reference. What I've done in this one is add to the adoption language that we are adopting them as presently constituted or hereinafter amended or recodified, so that if these are recodified in the future or amended, we won't have to be back here again. I am trying to avoid having that happen again. The way that the state system's set up, the state adopts several laws that our law enforcement is charged with enforcing. However, our municipal court only has jurisdiction over local laws and laws that is specifically given jurisdiction by statute, by state statute. So this is one of the chapters, or a couple of different chapters, that there is no separate jurisdictional statement given to jurisdiction here. So in order to enforce them in the municipal court, we have to adopt them, incorporate them by reference.
So in the future, on that terminology that you mentioned there at the end, we won't be spending staff time reviewing, is that me? Staff time reviewing the updates from the state and take the time what we have?
That's correct. I mean, unless there was something completely new. These are laws that aren't new. They're just recodifications. So we will not have to do that in the future, or if these specific ones are amended. If there was some new law that came into place, we would. I have been looking at, because there's other laws that might be affected that I haven't done a full audit, essentially, of the criminal code, that we might need to do this with in the future. I am thinking about taking an approach like that, a more comprehensive approach, and figuring out a way to address it more broadly. This is the way that most jurisdictions adopt them, though, individually, section by section.
Well, it seems like when we do it section by section, it's not just you, it's, I've I bring this up every time we do regulations with DSG, with the SMP. Why don't we just defer to the hire instead of spending staff time, valuable staff time, dissecting and picking and choosing which one applies to us. So it sounds like you're getting there, which I'm glad to see. A specific question I have on 79A 60-130, muffler and underwater exhaust system required. So does that mean that it talks about 85 dB, and my quick comparison chart here on loudness shows, I
didn't get one of those.
well, I actually had to look it up, Councilmember Jenke. The telephone dial tone, for instance, is 80 dB. I guess the point I want to make, the 85 dB specified in this regulation doesn't sound that very loud. So does that mean that our Marine Patrol will now be able to some way address the head-rattling noise of those very loud boats on the water? Is that what that means?
It will be unchanged by this. This is one of the sections that we had already adopted, and it hasn't been recodified or changed. And keep in mind, the changes here, the adoptions are essentially adopting what we already had. They've just changed in numbering scheme, and there's been some rewording language. That is one of the ones, if you look, it hasn't been underlined or redlined. It's something that we already had there. And I don't have any personal knowledge of what 88 decibels is, quite frankly, so I don't know what that means in the context of how loud it is.
Well, Chief, I thought it was pretty loud because you always, maybe you can get with me offline and sensitize me where 85 is, because on this little chart that I have here, it doesn't seem like 85 is that loud. Okay. The last question is, explain to me the urgency of getting this fast-tracked.
This is,
and why we wouldn't just do it the normal procedure.
The way we deal with all of our infractions, and criminal for that matter, but all of our infractions is Mercer Island Police issues a ticket to the Mercer Island court, and without the court having jurisdiction over these, what we're having to do is refer them over to King County District Court, and which involves just a lot of extra administrative waste having to do that, because it's a whole different procedure where we're mailing them over. If it gets contested, the officers will have to drive over to Issaquah, and we just want to minimize the time because this is a purely administrative matter. It's increased cost for the city. It's outside of the norm of how we would enforce this, and it removes the authority of the municipal court essentially to enforce it.
So is our court prepared in the judicial pipeline to accept these issues, or these cases?
Our court's been accepting these cases. This is a change that just went into place. They were recodified in July 1st. We unfortunately missed it because it was this last legislative session. We missed that these changes happened and that they caused the jurisdictional issues until just recently. As soon as we found out about it, we put this on the agenda in order to get this issue addressed. The number of tickets for these specific, and it's basically just registration, registration and voter's education card. Voter's education card is something that, depending on your age, you're required to get a voter's education card. The age is going up. The legislature has it set to where it goes up. So in the future, everyone will have to get it, I believe, or at least people that are older than they have to right now. If they get those infractions, if they go to the court and show proof that they took the class, the penalty goes away. I think they have to take the class within 30 or 60 days or something like that. The registration is the other one. There's a total of 20 last year that we issued, or about 20. Okay. So we're not talking about a significant number.
Okay, Al?
I guess the bottom line, with my first question, the bottom line is this all about a jurisdiction, getting all these cases from King County down to our municipal court?
That's where they've always been, is the municipal court. When we discovered this issue, then we realized we've got to go to district court until we can get these changes into place.
Okay, let me zero in on a couple here that I highlighted. 79A 60640 and 79A 60660. First one, requirements to operate a motor-driven boats, vessels, exemptions, penalties. That's new, right?
That is new.
So is that age you just alluded to ever going to get to, say, 50?
I believe so, yes.
Is it ever going to get to 60?
And actually, I think it goes up to 90.
I think
90
it does
plus.
pretty much go up to everyone. And again, that's the voter's education card that I had mentioned earlier. I believe it might be an online class, but
How long am I safe for?
I could, let me see, I can look it up real quick and we'll see what it says. It is, and I'm not sure whether I have that one specifically, because I think that the years are in ones that we don't specifically adopt. That's a separate state one. It's one of those administrative ones.
Shane, while you're looking that up, what is teak surfing?
Well, that was my next one. I mean, are you going to ban my teak surfing and platform dragging?
And I can't body surf anymore, I noticed that.
I'm not being totally facetious here. I mean, there is a sport known as wave surfing.
I can read through it for you if you'd like.
Are we?
I'm not personally familiar with it.
And that's, I guess, what I'm getting at here.
It's essentially hanging off the back of the boat while the motor's running. It's quite dangerous.
Well, yeah, but there's also a.
I know.
Okay.
So
that actually happens, and the legislature, in their wisdom, saw a need to ban this kind of activity?
Yes.
Okay, I mean,
that was enacted in 2006.
Yeah, we're debating existing law here, guys.
Okay, no.
It's also law that applies regardless of whether we adopt it or not.
This has been presented as strictly administrative and catching it up with the state. And I guess I'm getting all the way back to Mike Ciro's original question. Over and over, we asked to do this, but it's already mandated by the state. So why do we do it? And I guess the bottom line reason here is to move the jurisdiction from King County to the municipal court?
That's primarily the reason, is so that we can prosecute these things at the city of Mercer Island. And the earlier question, I think Councilmember Ciro asked about the timing of this. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if you speed this up, you will have it in place for Seafair, and our law enforcement folks need to do that.
Well, wait a minute. Whether it's in place or not for Seafair, it's just a question of whether it's sent to King County versus municipal court.
That's correct.
Our law enforcement are not going to change one thing about how they operate.
No, it's about prosecution. Correct. It's about prosecution.
And
it's correct.
So generally, the city's going to be responsible for prosecuting the crimes and infractions, especially crimes, but infractions too that happen within the city. I have talked with the King County District Court. They're comfortable with us sending these few here, but it's not like we can completely send all of our cases to King County and stop adopting the state laws to allow our municipal court to have jurisdiction. We're expected to enforce the state laws, and it is. It's the state putting the burden on us to do it. And it's a somewhat antiquated system. I won't say that it's not, of us having to separately adopt the state laws that the state requires us to enforce. But it's a fact of how it's written, and if anyone wants to ask the legislature to change it to where we automatically have jurisdiction, I would love that.
So
it would save us staff time.
So then it's going to cost us money to do this, to prosecute, right?
If we do it in King County Court, we'd have to file them in King County Court and have them prosecuted for us, and that would cost.
King County will not.
That costs us money?
Yeah.
King County will not be charging.
What's that?
Sorry, I just want to make sure. King County will not be charging us filing fees on these. There are some cases that they would charge us filing fees, and if we sent an extraordinary amount, they would. But what they will be doing is keeping all revenue from it. So our law enforcement will be paying for our law enforcement to enforce these. They'll issue tickets, and then King County and the state will keep all the proceeds of the tickets. Whereas if we file them in the Mercer Island court, then the state still gets a portion of it, but Mercer Island gets the local portion instead of King County.
And that's how we fund our court.
Okay. Actually, there was something in there. There was an RCW in here that you didn't just say we're going to do what the state does. That was paragraph 5. There it is. R79A 6E170. So why on this one, 170, water skiing safety, do you put an exception in there? And that's what I want to get away from, is just actually, I don't understand how we can even have the authority to deviate from the state law.
And It's currently in state law 79A 6170. That's in our city code. So I'm not seeing. It's not a change. It's not.
No,
one
so
that
he's
the state
looking
recently
at the word exceptions. That's the language in the RCW. He's not saying that there's an exception for the penalty.
Yes.
Just quoting the title from the RCW.
Those are all quoted titles from the RCW.
There's no change in the application of the law on the water by adopting this.
That's correct. We are not making any changes to state law. We're merely adopting state law.
Mike, Grady?
Do you remember what you were doing?
Is this the 2-minute meeting?
No. I tried for no presentation. I thought it might work.
I noticed.
I'm sorry you missed that.
That baby right in.
For those playing along at home, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to suspend City Council Rule of Procedure 5.2 requiring a second reading of ordinances.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Excellent. Mr. Mayor, move to adopt version 1 of proposed ordinance number 11C-09, amending the Mercer Island Harbor Code, MICC 11.35.010, to incorporate updated and recodified state boating regulations. Ordinance effective August 1, 2011.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thanks, Shane. Okay, we're going on now to our last agenda item, and this is Recycle Center and Cindy Goodwin.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Cindy Goodwin, the Director for the Department of Youth and Family Services, and I'm here tonight talking about Agenda Bill 4653. In the agenda, I included a number of pieces covering the history, the council direction that you gave to the Department of Youth and Family Services and Parks and Recreation at the 2010 planning retreat. That's Exhibit 1. The public process participants, the stakeholders that were part of the public process that occurred last year from about February to June, and then just a listing of the interests, the community interests for the site development. And that was a lot of background to the whole issue of what would be the next step of the recycling center. Currently, it's being used mainly for storage and used for the farmers market. When it's not in session on Sundays, it's used for youth and family services. We have a trailer there, and then some other storage and other just miscellaneous purposes. And we've been approached. I've been approached, and the director for Parks and Recreation has been approached by different groups asking us what we're going to do next. So, my interest in this site stems from just our funding's going away from a number of sources. The schools are having reductions to their budget, so that we're feeling that. We have just some reductions to the city fund, and it's a hard time for all of us, and we were able to make that up with the thrift shop this year. Contracts, we're feeling it in the contracts that we receive from the county. And at the same time, our needs for services are going up. And that happens every time you have a downturn in the economy. That's just the way that it is. So we face cuts at the same time that we have an increase for our services. So our interest is also that the thrift shop is limited where it is in its ability to grow in bringing in revenue by the footprint that it's on right now. So we maximize what we can with our donations, and we pass on some goods. So there's some unrealized value that's there. Currently, in the space that we're in, the revenue this year will be about $1 million. And we estimate with 10 to 12,000 feet that we could go up to $2 million. So that's kind of some background information, and that's what we're thinking about as I put together this agenda bill. And really, what we think about, our interest is in our request to have you think about giving direction for how we can proceed in the future. It stems from our desire to use the space. We've always been pretty upfront about that, but we'd really ideally like to do that with a number of community groups, and that's what spurred on the applying of the grant for the Bainbridge Graduate Institute and bringing on the executive management students that conducted that process last year. So in the agenda bill, what I'm asking for you to consider is
Youth and Family Services has a foundation, and our foundation supports us through raising funds for our department. And there's a subcommittee of that foundation, and that's the Professional Resource and Consult Group, and that's your Exhibit 5. And the members of that subcommittee are businessmen in the community, and they assist the department in maintaining, enhancing, and further developing effective social venture endeavors that will help fund the work of Youth and Family Services. So we're asking that this group take on a professionally facilitated public process with an expanded group of stakeholders, taking a look at who participated in it last time, reaching out to people who have come forward since and said, hey, what are you doing? I have this great idea. Reaching out to the residents and businesses in that area, and then including the school district in that, because so much of what can happen with some of the projects that were brought up during the last process, so much could help adolescents and middle schoolers, and even probably elementary schoolers too. So conduct a process. From that process, put together a group of community stakeholders who would act as a subcommittee and continue to work with this group. Do that process from this coming September through next February, reporting regularly, and then coming in March with a final report and really a proposal to you to say, to bring forth what we came up with as a group of community citizens and as two departments, saying that we have an interest in using this space, so that you can consider whether what we're considering is that you'd like that for your city, that it brings together and really takes into account the needs of our community. When we take a look at this, we look at the value added for us and for the city. That's that if we can raise more funds, and for Youth and Family Service we do that for fundraising in the thrift shop, our need for general funds from the city go down. You're able to spend that elsewhere. And we're looking at something that would be self-funded and also support other positive island endeavors. Incredible amount of people have great ideas. Most of the ideas that came forth were really about environmental stewardship. That was the majority of the idea, the bulk of it. It provides internship service learning, community service learning to students and island residents. And it's sustainable and adequate funding for human services, which is really crucial right now. There are a number of endeavors going on the east side and other parts of the United States looking at how do we keep the funds to human services steady throughout any kind of economic times. And then depending upon what this group comes up with, it might make the old building available if that group thinks about a building on that site that would house the other items that have come up, demonstration kitchens, environmental centers. There were so many ideas that came up, so that there might be some kind of releasing of the old thrift center building, and then that might not be it. It's really for this group to come together and talk about all the options. So this is really a request for you to consider allowing us to go forward with the planning process, allowing this subcommittee of our board, along with Parks and Recreation Department. We would involve a number of other people from the city. DSG would have to help us in this endeavor, and it would bring together the resources we need to have a publicly facilitated process, and the development of a plan that's a viable business plan for this site, and something that would add value to our community. So that's what we're asking, and I'd really like to entertain any questions and hear your thoughts on next steps.
Thanks, Cindy. Mike?
Cindy, thank you for that thorough presentation. My recollection of the Bainbridge Island process was that they were then going to train staff or someone to then take it the next step. So is that what you're proposing, is that we've learned from that process and then folks from the foundation, from your foundation, would then be the facilitators that would then move the process forward?
We would like to move that process forward. We did not get trained by them, and I think that we would use somebody from the outside, and that was one element. That was one of our original hopes from that process. But the process went a little differently than we had planned at the beginning, and so I don't think we got the training that we could execute this. It's also, I think, a bigger endeavor than we had originally thought about. So I think it would be probably facilitated by an outside group.
So can you explain what that means in terms of who that would be and where the funds would come from to pay for that?
So there, one group on the Island Transitional Initiative, Mercer Island, had applied for a grant earlier this year and had asked the departments of Parks and Recreation and Youth and Family Services to join with them. And they applied for a grant from the Pomegranate Center, and those are people that bring together peoples within the community to plan for public spaces. And there are a number of grants available out there, so I think we look at grants, I think we look at private donors, I think we look at resources. Part of the business group that we put together for the thrift shop is bringing together other people on the island who have these expertises, bringing the resources to bear on projects that we think are important for the community. So I think that we would do probably some in-city recruitment with people here who do that professionally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, you may not realize this, but when this council isn't doing traffic engineering, we do building design work. So if you need help with your traffic, we can do that as well. But right now, we're into building design. So I'm trying to visualize this what you're doing here and where it all ends up. And because you said that this could replace the thrift shop, and that you'd have a facility which I believe you said was what, about 10 to 12,000 square feet.
We'd ideally like that. I don't know if that's
Well,
the
I mean, so I'm trying to visualize where the parking goes. How are you going to? That this is not a big site. So is it you're talking about doing parking underground or in a building, or what's the thinking on where you're going on this?
So I haven't done that thinking either, and I'm hoping that this group will do that if we bring together those people. But I don't know if it would be, if you do a building there, then using the other space, because that would be larger and more in community endeavors. Maybe you'd use the existing space for parking. I don't know what other development is going there that we might be able to be included in that parking. I don't know.
Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think our code would permit you to use parking across Mercerdale Park to support a development on the recycling site.
The existing parking lot?
They're not practical. I mean, nobody's going to walk all the way across the field there, parking there.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you can put the parking so far away from the site. But I'm sure Tim can advise on that. All I'm trying to do is to visualize where this is going, and because particularly since I think you will be constrained on parking, this suddenly becomes quite an expensive development. So what is the thinking, that this group will get together and figure out ways to pay for this without using city funds? Because as is quoted from in the agenda bill, the council made it very clear that there are no city funds available for this project.
Yeah. Yes, and you're asking me questions that I hope this group will take on, because we would be constrained by not using city funds and doing an endeavor that includes a lot of different groups' interests. I don't know exactly where that will go. And maybe it is underground parking. Maybe it's that we can't do a building site there. Maybe we do something that allows us to do donations and some of our internship work there, and that we remodel the sites, because we don't do that work there. We can sell more at the original site. I really don't know where it will go. And those are questions that other people have asked too. But I think by bringing together business people and speaking with other departments, we're going to have to ask all of those questions.
In terms of trying to expand your existing structure, is another alternative to basically tear that down and build a 2-story structure or a 3-story structure, or something that would still be within the existing zoning?
Yeah. It's interesting. We have thought about that, and whether it would have to be a tear down. It could not be the building because of the roofs and how much space you have that's very low on the footprint. And then if you did that, parking there is also an issue too. So I think all of these things would be thrown into the fold for discussion.
And I think at this point, you're just asking for the go-ahead to have a group to study it. I mean,
Right.
one thing jumped out at me as I looked at all the materials here. One person's comment as you polled the community was, number 25, take your time and make a good decision. So I think it's, this is very preliminary, and you're not requesting any funds at this time.
Right.
I don't disagree with that. Well, we'll wait till we get the discussion. I'm just asking questions at this point.
Right. Bill? I guess my query here is, we started out with the Bainbridge Group, and your presentation, the conclusion I get is that it's almost been decided this is going to be for the thrift shop, and that kind of flies in the face of the whole process you described. I'm not sure I understand that.
I don't feel that way. And please excuse me if I've given that impression. I want to make clear that we really do have an interest in being there, but not at the expense or the exclusion of anybody else. I really threw us in the mix with a lot of other endeavors. I think if we were to get together and say, the group comes up with, this is not going to fly to build anything here, the coding is set at this, you can't get it, there's no other way to get out, all of the issues that you bring up, we'd have to back off. We'd have to say, you know what, this is not going to work for YFS, but you've got all these other great groups. Let me give you this report, and this is what you could do with it. So I don't feel like there is no done deal here. I'm not thinking one way. I'm really thinking that if you get people together in the community, they'll do a good job of vetting this issue and making a plan. Then you'll do a good job of vetting the whole issue and looking at what some subgroup came up with and recommends to you. And then you will really see whether it's something that you want to do.
So, Mr. Mayor, so that area right now is being utilized by the farmers market, by Rotary use it for their pancake breakfast.
Yeah.
What other uses?
Parks and Rec uses it a little bit for staging and some for storage.
Right.
For stuff in the.
So I mean, this is a question I'll ask in a statement. It is being used in a productive manner.
Storage. Each group that was given the okay to use it as storage, temporary storage, was told that you're welcome to use it, but you have no more of a foothold than anybody else. And we have a trailer there for donations that's switched out every week. So every group that we say yes, you can use it, we always say it's with the understanding that there's nothing set for this property yet until the city finishes a public process. But you're welcome to use it.
It's still a temporary use in a temporary structure and space, and it doesn't have a long-term vision, which ultimately the city council has to generate. And so I think one way to think of what Cindy is talking about is they want the blessing from the council that at least in the YFS world, they can go out and do a little bit of brainstorming and visioning about what it could be, at least as it relates to the thrift shop, keeping in mind that they don't want to make it exclusively for the thrift shop, that other things could happen there too. And frankly, the reason I was okay with bringing this forward is I'm not sure that unless something like this happens where somebody takes the bull by the horns and says, let's create a vision, we won't get a vision. Right now, there's no leadership going on in that space absent Youth and Family Services saying we'd like to at least start some leadership in that area. And I think it's in the council's interest to at least get something started.
Cindy, what's the square footage of the existing thrift shop?
6,800 feet. Suzanne, the thrift shop coordinator. Can you answer that?
Yes, I'm Suzanne Feeney, shop coordinator. 7,200 feet and 4,000 of it is for sales floor.
7,200 with 4,000 for sales.
4,000 of the 7,200 is sales?
Yeah. Plus our sidewalk sales.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's bring it back then for discussion. I'm going to start off real quick. I think it's great you're taking the initiative. I think that's appropriate. I do believe, though, that this will be controversial because you're in a park, and that's never been a non-controversial issue in the history of the island. Mm-hmm. So I would very strongly recommend that you get a third-party neutral to lead this discussion, so as it gets hot politically, that they're not unduly beat up.
Yeah, I will just say, Cindy, for the record, that I would not support the construction of a thrift shop on that site. I don't think that's a prime piece of real estate next to one of the best parks we have the only park we have in Town Center. And to put a thrift shop there would just, to me, be a non-starter. I think what you're doing at the existing location is phenomenal, and it works, and you've got some parking. And if you really want to look at increasing the size of it, I would strongly encourage you to see what the opportunities are on that site. So, I mean, if I agree with Rich that we need someone to take us to the next step of what to do with the recycling center property, but I would like the council, I would encourage the council to go on record as saying that moving the recycling center there should not be one of the options you're looking at.
Moving the thrift shop there.
Moving the thrift shop there should not be one of the options you're looking at.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Grouse. I would like to see the effort being put in, and what a great job you're doing at the thrift center, but the effort being put in, not focusing on necessarily increasing revenue, but increasing profit at the existing site. And I worry about, and I appreciate as a director you wanting to look over the horizon or plan over the horizon, but given the cuts that we've done to your department and given the additional demand on your department by our citizens because of the economic time, I worry about this diverting your attention, your focus, and and everything, and money, because this is going to cost money, away from your core mission, especially at this time of economic difficulty, in a project that we're utilizing that area for folks adequately, maybe not to somebody's vision, but I don't want the planning of this taking you away from your core mission, and that is serving people in need in this community. So I am apprehensive about going forward with this.
Jane, anything?
Well, I'm reading the possibilities of use by community groups for demonstration kitchens, teaching skills area, farmers market workspace and storage. I mean, it interests me that there might be something not reproducing the thrift shop, but maybe enhancing what's going on at the farmers market somehow, but not selling at that spot, because I see the parking problem again right at the corner of the park.
Yeah. Those are good points. I mean, we might all come to that conclusion. I think you're right, then.
Isn't it amazing how it always comes down to parking?
Yes.
Everything's about parking.
Mike, did you see one idea was plug-ins?
You, Dan stole my earlier, I was going to make that point, but it was going to come later. No, one, I want to thank you again for taking the leadership on this, because it is going to be a hot potato, as Jim mentioned, and your willingness to do it. I would also suggest you bring in some other partners to help you. There, as you know, are a number of NGOs, non-governmental organizations out there that can help in this arena. Our utility, Puget Sound Energy, would be a great partner to help you not only fund this, but also look at some opportunities for what they potentially could help fund. The issue of a land swap or working with a public-private kind of cooperative agreement, I'm sure is something that'll get thrown on the table. So there's a lot of possibilities here, absent the parking issue, that I think are worthwhile, and particularly looking at, because that park is so attractive to kids of many ages, but the opportunity to have a teaching, learning lab nearby is very attractive. And I think to that extent, you'll be able to pull in a lot of outside interest and outside funding. And then finally, I just have to thank you again for, we cut your budget and you just keep coming back creating more revenue. So it's just a remarkable machine. And I will warn you, I will be cleaning the garage here shortly. So that constant source of stuff just never seems to end from the Grady household. So thank you again.
Yeah.
I will chime in. This blouse is from the thrift shop. That is true.
If I could just point out, I think you should all thank Suzanne Fillion, the coordinator.
Hey, Suzanne, nice job.
She deserves
I have to tell you, I was at, in fact, Gene and I, with AWC in Spokane, and we met a gal from Sultan, wasn't it, or Concrete, or something. It's Sultan. And she goes, oh, yeah, I come to Mercer Island just to go to your thrift shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Snowing all over the state. I mean, it's really quite something. We were kind of taken back by that. But anyway, let's give some direction if we could kind of wrap this up. Let me ask kind of, Phil, I'll just throw this out here. Do we think it's a good idea for Cindy to work on a plan for some kind of public involvement to research potential uses of that space, not limited to the thrift shop, but to other things, but to get it moving? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Well,
I mean, are we good with that?
But I would like to just exclude the thrift shop as an option there. I mean,
A new thrift shop.
a new thrift shop is the option.
Well, but let me ask, I'm going to refine that a little bit. If one of the options was to use it for a storage or some kind of thing to assist the other one, is that off the table or is that a potential?
That's not off the table. I think
Okay.
that would be, if you end up building a facility, rebuild a facility which might include other community uses, and you had storage space you wanted to add to that because you could do it, I don't think anyone will disagree with it. It's the idea of having the thrift shop itself be on that corner. Yeah. As important as that corner is, on the other side of the park, it doesn't impact the park. Mm-hmm. On this side of the park, it would have a huge impact on the park, and that to me is problematic.
Okay. So the council, just so, can we do fingers here? Interest in not moving the site, the current site, but leaving the thrift shop where it is. Is that where people's heads are at?
You're asking just to keep it
where it is and not consider moving it where the recycling center is.
I think the way we've talked about it in the past is sort of, you find ways to use the recycling site as an ancillary or some sort of way to help springboard additional sales and revenues that would come in at the main site.
Right.
But it's sort of as Dan described it.
Hey, let's not overcomplicate this. All Dan's saying is no new thrift shop at that site.
Right. We're just getting clarity, and that's what I'm hearing from the group, right? But also we're hearing is that there might be some uses potentially at that site that are connected to the thrift shop in some way. That could be considered.
Okay.
Is that right? Okay. Right. So that's what we're hearing. And that we're also saying is that for you to do the initiative to bring in other stakeholders and to explore potential uses for that site, that we're okay with that.
Well, that's not
right?
where I'm necessarily okay with that. I mean, I see no urgency. What's that?
I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'm answering.
Yeah.
I'm concerned of the director focusing on youth and family services core mission, on serving our citizens, especially those citizens in need, and I don't want her nor the additional expense, especially during this time when we're having a tough time with budget, and I don't see any urgency in creating a vision for that area. So I'd like to punt this down 12 months. Have this discussion 12 months down the road.
Mike, from what I understand, his proposal, legwork is being done by Ken and Perry and others who are on the foundation. So they've apparently, I don't want to speak for Ken and Perry, but I gather they've volunteered to help work on this project along with a few otof people. So we're going to get some free labor from our citizens that will help us and will, I assume, do most of the legwork on this. Because Ken's always looking for new projects, I know that.
So let me just see hands. Okay for staff to go down. Can I just see 5? You agree with it, or no? That staff can go do this.
Well, I guess with the proviso that the facilitation is going to be done by a third party, and it's not going to consume Cindy or staff's time.
Yes, that was given when I signed this.
And who's paying for that? Who's going to pay for that third party?
We haven't allocated anything for it.
No.
Not us.
Not us.
But the third party can be the foundation. I mean, they were talking about our citizens doing. We're not talking about hiring a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Well, the foundation. I mean, that's. It's going to cost money. I'd like to see the foundation's money going towards something else at this time.
That's the foundation's choice.
Yeah.
That's right.
They're an independent group, and.
Well, I think you've got concurrence here.
Mr. Mayor, can I pose one more concurrence question? Because I think it just came up in this. Can they?
Actually, I didn't hear any concurrence. I don't know about you.
Well, this is from the school of Alan Merkel consensus description. I heard.
Oh, to let me summarize.
Yeah, to let me summarize. Right. I heard some.
We're for the 20-story high rise.
Everybody good with that? Okay. I did hear some discussion and a couple of heads nodding at least about if they went back and started focusing on the existing site and potential redevelopment, if there are ways to redevelop in a way that's in our interest, the door is open for that as well. Sure. Because the goal here is to look at the thrift shop to continue to be the major source of funding for human services on Mercer Island. I'd actually challenge the argument that their core mission is something else other than this. This is their core mission, because without it, none of those services exist. The city's budget now is like $250,000 of general fund contribution to an operation that's over $2 million a year. This is what funds it. So they have to do this, and if we're going to have any expansion or even keep pace with inflation, we're always going to have to look at the thrift shop as a growing revenue source.
Yeah, right. I think that's fine. And that building's not very new anyway.
Right. It's the old Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
From way back.
And it's the old Mercer
As I understand this,
Country Club.
Mercerdale Country Club, when there was a swimming pool on site.
what I understand this is, basically, you're going to start a process of a discussion, and when there starts to become something of substance to report, you'll be back to the council.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what all this is. Okay?
So it might be worthwhile, Cindy, when you finish and think about what everyone said, that you just maybe draft a paragraph explaining what you think we just did.
Well,
So we can just...
well, why don't we ask Cindy, what did you hear from us?
Okay. I hear, yes, go ahead with the planning. It cannot be a site for a new thrift shop. Mike brought up, that was a nice point, and I want to let you know that I would never take away from my focus on making sure that our core services remain strong, but don't do it at the expense of current services. It can be looking at that with other endeavors, and we can use it for, let's say, sorting donations and processing that would allow us to use more of our current footprint over there, and it may make us think about remodeling differently. But basically, you don't want another thrift shop there. Use a third-party person and don't take away from our core services.
Okay.
And go.
Is that what we heard or said? Yeah. Nice summary.
Good.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys. More hours, Ken, huh? All right, with that, we are on to other business, council member absences. Do we have a motion to excuse Bruce Bassett?
I move.
Bruce Bassett.
I got a text from Councilmember Bassett today, and since you can't put too many words in those things, all it said was sweltering in Italy. So,
well, no one's going to be crying for him. Okay, all right. Okay, do we have a second to excuse sweltering Bassett?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, future absences. Anyone going to be out of town, anything? August? No?
I'll be absent for the October 17th meeting.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the planning schedule. Any comments, changes?
Well, there are changes since the last meeting, but I think I've captured them all. We've had to move a few things around just to try and balance meetings. Your August 1st meeting, while it looks very full, if we can stay reasonably close to these times, it'll work. Shoreline Master Program is the main attraction. I may move that franchise agreement for PSC to a different date because I'm worried we just won't have time. That is overdue. We need to re-up that franchise, but there's really very little latitude that you have. It's a matter of just passing something. It's August 1st, the last item. It's for natural gas. And same thing is true for September 6th, but I think that one's going to be reasonably balanced.
Rich, there's a lot on. I look at the project savings, the sewer lake line project savings taking forever, and the Shoreline Master Program taking forever.
Right. Well, we can move certainly the senior advisory board item. That's been moved a couple of times. And the impervious surface thing, it literally is 10 minutes. I think you guys took care of that tonight. So, yeah, I'll try and trim that down a little bit for you, because I have been worried about that as well. Otherwise, the year's filling up.
I don't think we're going to be in a position to talk about the disposition of the sewer lake line project savings on August 3rd.
That's true. That's true.
So I think you can move that off to the next, till September.
Okay.
August 15th, canceled?
August 15th is canceled.
Anyone object to that?
So the rest of the year is filling up. As you can see, the meetings, we've still got a few places where we could put a few items, but I don't like trying to get more than 4 regular business items per meeting. So you can see most of them already have 3.
Which was the small works ordinance? I don't see that on here anymore.
We did move it. I think I moved it
We-
later in the
we-
year.
No, we were able to take that off. We determined that was fixed.
Oh, right.
Remember?
Yes, I vaguely remember that it was fixed.
Okay.
Well, that's right. We did discover the language that allowed us to just go ahead and implement.
Correct.
It didn't need council action. Okay. That's a good thing. That'll save us money. Okay.
Anything else?
You know, one thing I'd like to bring up with the council is there were a couple letters in the editor, and I had a deer on my property, I think it was last week. Sometime the staff or the council is going to have a deer/urban wildlife policy, and it's better to do that early now versus when deer are really either causing harm to property or because the number
Eating your garden and your roadies and everything else.
Flowers, that's right. Or causing harm to themselves, and we've got a lot of scraggly deer out there. So I'm not saying it has to be done ASAP, well, actually ASAP, but that means whenever you can get it in there.
Councilmember Cyril, and maybe we could talk about this offline, though. I think actually we do have something in our code that allows us to defer to county or state requirements. But we can talk more about
Okay, good.
On the subject, I did have an extensive discussion about this over the weekend and talked to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about it, and they are willing to insert a gray wolf pack on Mercer Island as part of their relocation project. And if that doesn't work, they have some grizzly bears that they want to move from Montana.
Yeah, I think let's go right to the grizzlies. I mean, start with the wolf.
I thought we were going to issue some licenses.
Actually, you know, my hometown back east had a mountain lion invade it, and it's a suburban town, and that was interesting.
Rich, what about the CBD retail percentage on the first floor? How are we going to address that? How or when?
Tim is working on it. We have it on the council planning schedule. I think I got it on there.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I don't think we ended up reaching any consensus on direction to
No,
Tim.
you just asked the staff to come back with ideas.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing probably best for a study session rather than I mean, we're still, I think, at the talking stage. We're not at the, I mean, and then Tim can come back with ideas in a study session.
Yeah, if you need to.
Yeah, Tim Stewart, that would likely follow SMP after we get that done, and would be able to tackle new projects.
So that's like 2014?
15.
Okay, anything else?
One last thing. I had a gentleman from King County approach me about entertaining with the council whether we want to make a statement about the Veterans and Human Services levy that's coming up in August. Is there a feeling on the council on that?
It's usually been we don't engage in those unless you want to bring it forward for discussion, but typically we've not taken positions on them.
This is, the question would be the county's reenacting or re-upping the Human Services and Veterans levy that was adopted, I think, 6 years ago, 6-year levy, and so it's coming back. And I don't believe we took a stand 6 years ago. We may have. I guess I don't recall. And yeah, that's really
But that does not mean in any way you as an individual council member cannot make.
Well, I don't have any problem in making stands on stuff.
I know that. I just want to clarify that, Mike. Okay. Anything else?
Just a question for Rich. I note we've got the EV budget adjustment in September.
Yes.
Just a quick question. Where are we on the deployment of the charging stations?
James has got, actually, we got 2 rounds of money. We got, just recently, another round of money became available, and I think we're up to like $80,000 worth of charging stations. This item will get us, actually it's 2 companion items, will get us a purchasing agreement with Seattle going and buying the stations along with them at a good price. So the implementation goes immediately after this gets approved.
Good. Well, the fundamental question I'll raise a little bit later. We have a workshop on October 25th that I'm chairing.
Would you like to see a couple of stations?
I would like to see a few stations.
I'll let him know. Where are you having the workshop?
It's up in Everett.
Oh, all right. You just like to be able to say.
I would like to say.
All right, all right.
It's kind of like Phil Flash with the light rail.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get you one.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to board appointments. We have one board appointment, and this was passed by, Council Member Brahm on this, the Arts Council Liaison, and I believe the pronunciation is Maria Lewin. Is it, Eddie? Is that the? Okay. Anyway, Jane thinks it's a good person. The Arts Council thinks it's a good person, and I put her name forward. Do I have a motion to appoint?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Jane, it's customary. It's your group.
Second. Yes,
okay.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Congratulations. And then we have done, last thing is council member reports. Mike Ciro, do you want to start out? Okay. Mr. Grady? Oh, Council Member Grady?
I do have an interest from the U.S. Luge team to come to the region, but we'll need...
Is that down 68th?
And it could be on Mercer Island. So I'm going to corner Ken and the fundraisers because we need to raise some money in order to make that happen.
All right. I see it.
I got to talk to Ed about closing up some streets.
Jane?
Oh, yes, I attended the Mercer Island Arts Council meeting, met the new appointee, Christine Lewis, and I'm happy that we have appointed another. They, I think, will be almost full on the Arts Council. They're in the middle of their busiest time right now, and I want to remind you of the Mostly Music in the Park. Sundays and Thursdays coming up. They had the first concert last Sunday. It was kind of wet. It rained out, yes. Too wet. And but this coming Thursday, there's the concert in the park at 7, and third Thursday is downtown Mercer Island on the northeast quadrant of downtown from 5 to 8. And people need to remember, too, that the free concerts aren't free. The sponsorships are down this year. So they'll be, the members of the Arts Council will be passing the hat to get donations because they're underfunded at the moment. That's it.
Dan?
Are we really meeting at 7:30 tomorrow morning yet? Oh, joy.
You asked it.
Public Safety Committee, 7:30.
Utility Board, anything?
No.
Yes, sir.
Well,
I'm going to jump in real quickly, Councilmember Jenke, if you don't mind, on Utility Board. Just a heads up, keep your eye on this one. You're going to have a joint session, first meeting in September, with the Utility Board to talk about water rates. If you haven't been watching the papers, the City of Seattle, who is our supplier of water and supplies water to most water districts in many cities around the region, are about to propose and enact huge wholesale increases, the biggest I've ever seen. And it's going to get people's attention. And
by what?
a variety of factors, including a major capital investment program that they've already done the investing, or they've done sold the bonds, so they're obligated. So that's to fund the system itself. One of the other major drivers is people aren't buying as much water as they used to. So literally just water usage has gone down.
By way of preparation, it's been a long time since we've looked at our contract, wholesale contract for water with the city. Are there any constraints whatsoever in terms of their pricing?
No. And this actually part of the rate increase was predicted when we signed it 10 years ago. We had a choice between Cascade Water Alliance and Seattle, and we chose Seattle for a variety of good reasons. But
Like a 60-year contract,
right.
too, right?
One of the things that was in that contract was in year 10, the advantage to what they used to call the old water, new water rates for established communities like Mercer Island would go away. We're there. So that's part of what's driving this. It's about a third of the increase is attributed to that, and then there's increases on top of that.
Okay. So we'll need a lot of background at the study session
Yeah, you will.
on how
we got
the
to this
contract,
point. Right.
because refresh our memories.
So you'll have city staff there to do all of that. You'll also have Seattle Water people to also come explain their reasoning. Okay, last little bit, this will be my last comments on this. Chief, would you please extend our thanks to all your guys? They were the first ones that got a card signed by, I think, your whole department to my house with balloons and the whole bit, and it meant an awful lot to me. And Jennifer Franklin and well, actually her daughter had a wonderful card that was quite meaningful. I also want to say, Rich, and you and all the department heads, they gave me a basket that was, I think, 40 pounds of every healthy food you could imagine, and a bottle of wine for my wife. And she was very happy with the bottle of wine. And it was very thoughtful, and if you extend my thanks to everyone, and council members, I appreciated your flowers, cards, everything. It was a big deal. You hate to go through something like that to figure now and then that you appreciate it, and we certainly did appreciate it, and it was a scary time for us. And anyway, the future looks very bright, and we do want to tell you on behalf of my family, thank you all very much for your thoughtfulness. And people are watching. We received hundreds, I mean literally, of calls, emails, cards. It was overwhelming, and I just want to thank everybody. It was quite life-changing. So thank you very much, and that ends our council meeting.